All right, friends, listen up. We've got one hell of a What's Right show planned right now in the hopper, given I wasn't here on Friday and all hell broke loose Thursday and Friday. I think we have more than a few things to cover. Now, I'm going to, if you'll permit me, give you my full thoughts on the Trump versus Elon Musk conflict at the top of next hour, because I want to get to everything going on in LA. By the way, we are live in our Southern Command headquarters in Newport Beach, California, 35 miles or so away from everything that is going on in Los Angeles. And of course, if you've been following this, you know that this is yet again another attempt by Democrats to obviously create chaos, mayhem, and political fodder to use as a political weapon. And it's not working. The same playbook is being tried again. This is not 2020. This is not the summer of George. The attempt to do this again is running into the buzzsaw of Trump and a public that I think is tired of this. So let's kind of go through a little bit of the timeline. If you haven't been following this as closely as I have, all of this sort of began to percolate on Friday. On Friday, somewhere between the morning and the afternoon, ICE and the Department of Homeland Security began conducting immigration raids. And it was sort of all across Los Angeles. Some of them were downtown in the Garment District in Chinatown. Other parts, there was one place where they raided a Home Depot in the Westlake area. And some minor skirmishes broke out, okay? It's not immediately clear if these initial conflagrations were planned. If you'll remember on Friday, there were many arrests, including David Huerta, who is the president of the SEIU of California. This is the Service Employees International Union, one of the biggest unions in the country. And he was charged with impeding federal agents by blocking a vehicle. Funny enough, he is the guy that Maxine Waters demanded to see when she went to the ICE detention facility. She went to the door, open the door. Maxine Waters rebuffed by federal agents there. But regardless, that was all on Friday. Incidentally, one of the people allegedly arrested in the sting, and this was a confirmation given to Fox News by the Department of Homeland Security, was that a Vietnamese illegal alien was a convicted murderer and gang member. This guy was involved in a shooting in 1994. He went to a high school graduation party in San Marino, which is in the Pasadena area, killed 2 teenagers and injured 7 others. His name is Quang Chan Fan. Apparently they wanted to attend the party, were asked to leave. He came back with an AK-47 and a handgun and opened fire. Killed an 18-year-old teen and a 15-year-old teen. So this is exactly the kind of people that we want removed from society, and yet the feral pets of the Democratic Party came out in full force, pelleting police cars, throwing concrete chips, blocks, shooting industrial-grade fireworks at police, and this quickly devolved into mayhem. Now, I think one of the more humorous aspects of this is the Democrats have gone on a media blitz over the weekend trying to claim that this was all peaceful stuff. It's a peaceful demonstration. And some of these people, literally, they were, even the mainstream media put up these Democrat talking heads to say that, whatever was going on was peaceful. And there'd be a split screen, and I'll play some of these clips for you, a split screen showing police cars on fire, smoke, out of control crowds, very dangerous situations. The 101 freeway yesterday, Sunday, shut down by protesters and police cars getting pelted from the overpass above, destroyed, smashed to smithereens. They were throwing cinder blocks, chipped concrete, and even those pesky electric scooters were all getting jettisoned off the bridge. I mean, this was really terrible, dangerous stuff. So Trump, in the middle of all of this, says, okay, enough is enough, deploys the National Guard. And then, for further emphasis, sends in 500 Marines from Camp Pendleton. Camp Pendleton is a Marine base located between basically Orange County and San Diego. So if you're leaving Orange County, San Clemente area goes further south on the 5 freeway. You pass through Camp Pendleton. It's right on the coast. Beautiful, beautiful military base. Anyway, 500 Marines came up, and look, I mean, everybody on the Democrat side, all of the elected politicians began foaming at the mouth. How dare Trump bring these people in? And this is the thing I want you to ponder about this. Imagine for a minute, you are a Democrat mayor, a Democrat governor. Okay, you are either you're Karen Bass, Mayor Bass in L.A. Let's say you're Governor Gavin Newsom of California, and your state is facing a crisis, a dangerous situation that is putting people in harm's way, property in harm's way, risks causing damage to your economy, etc. What person in their right minds, in their capacity as leadership capacity, whatever role they hold, whether mayor again or a county commissioner or a governor, who turns down help from the federal government? Because I think about this, right? This is of course they did, and as recently as yesterday, while the chief of police of Los Angeles is saying that they are quote unquote overwhelmed, Gavin Newsom is writing a letter to the feds telling them to withdraw federal troops, to withdraw the California Federal National Guard. This is wild stuff. Now, and I think about this, the parallel, of course, being hurricane relief, right? Now, there's plenty of examples where a state is decimated by a natural disaster. And, the natural disaster, of course, is politicized from the get-go, too, by Democrats who try to blame it on climate change, etc. Nonetheless, how often do you have a Republican president who is working together with a Democrat governor, or vice versa? A Republican governor working together with a Democrat in the legislature. How often does that happen to bring relief to the citizens of whatever state it is that was affected? And that's pretty common stuff. I mean, I know Chris Christie, you go back a ways, the hurricane that hit the Jersey Shore, and Chris Christie gave that a hug to Obama, and it, did in what was left at that point of Chris Christie's political career. But, common stuff. In times of crisis, unite. Now, I understand it's different when it comes to Trump generally. But I promise you, if there was a massive earthquake, California would come begging Trump for money, would come begging FEMA for assistance. 100% without any doubt. So why are they turning it down here? And the reason is that every single elected politician in the state of California that has a capital D behind their names wants this chaos and mayhem loose on the streets in order to dissuade ICE from performing the raids that they're doing, from performing these removal operations, scaring the agents, making it impossible for them to operate in the state so that as many illegal immigrants can remain here. That's the purpose of this. And this isn't just cynicism. This isn't me, reaching, or anything. This is just what it is. These politicians in California would sooner sacrifice every business, every house, their own citizens, so that they could save the illegals in the state. And the reason is if this all gets cleaned up, if Trump is successful with Tom Homan, California is a losing political power. The census, once taken again and not reflecting all of these illegals, will cause a major problem for Democrats, in Congress. And actually for Republicans as a whole, because again, there's so many congressional districts in California, it could make the difference between Republicans having a strong and semi-permanent majority in Congress versus, Democrats prevailing. Big thing at play. And that is what this is all about. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, today live behind the orange curtain in Newport Beach, California. Yes, I am here today. We'll be back in Vegas tomorrow. So I landed yesterday coming back from Florida, landed at LAX, and as I'm coming in for a landing, you could literally see smoke coming up from parts of downtown Los Angeles. And for the entirety of the flight, okay, I'm checking my phone and I'm seeing nothing but reports from different political types and reporters claiming that these protests, riots, were peaceful. I mean, your eyes don't lie. I mean, I saw what I saw. So at any rate, producer Robbie and I chatting here during the break, a little further explanation of what I mean about why it's such a benefit to Democrats to keep as many illegals in the country as possible. Politically, for one, the more folks that are counted in the census, and remember, John Roberts, the Supreme Court had to determine whether or not illegals would be counted in the census. And the Roberts court, with Roberts splitting, for the majority, ruled that indeed, yes, illegal immigrants are counted. So this is how we figure out congressional districts, right? This is how that works. You figure out congressional districts based on apportionment for however many people are living per the census in a particular area. And there, so, again, I mean, yes, House districts are drawn by state legislatures, but you get more districts the more people you have. And of course, you lose districts with the more people. So even if not a single illegal immigrant votes, and we know that that's not true, but even if not a single illegal immigrant casts a single vote, these Democrat areas that are filled with illegal immigrants get more congressional seats. So then all you have to have is the citizen Democrats there show up and vote, and all of a sudden Democrats have more seats in Congress. There was a study by the Center of Immigration Studies that says that the number of immigrants could shift 3 to 4 House seats toward states with higher immigrant populations. So put another way, that's a big difference. I mean, you can, I saw another study, Robbie, you sent this to me, 3.5 Democrat seats are believed to, at a minimum, be the result of illegal immigration. So, this is why they're fighting for it. And by the way, when I say that these protests, these riots are organized, you see the pictures of pallets of cinder block bricks showing up at the protest site, neatly wrapped and packaged from, Lowe's or Home Depot, wherever it was from, Builder Supply. That's not a bunch of thugs that just ran out on the street and decided to do something and do bad stuff and spontaneously protest against ICE. Somebody's behind that. And one of those groups suspected of it is the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. It's called CHRLA. And it receives, by the way, tens of millions of dollars in grant money during the Biden administration. And then Data Republican, who is a brilliant researcher on this stuff, and she's always kind of scouring these records and looking at stuff, she found that it was just last year that CHRLA received $34 million, mostly from the state of California. And it was a jump from the $12 million it received in the previous fiscal year. Why the nearly 3x jump? Well, I think they were planning to do this. They knew what was coming. They saw Trump, dead ahead, and knew that they would, Trump's promise, of course, was to clean up illegal immigration. So they knew they had to do something. So this group received about $450,000 in grants for citizenship education and training between October 21 and September 24. And just a lot of money. It's all of these NGOs. By the way, another group, the Marxist Party for Socialism and Liberation, which played part in the anti-Israel campus protests at Columbia University, also has ties to this. And at this party, by the way, this group is supported in part by the Chinese Communist Party and has funding from a socialist billionaire, Neville Singham, and his wife, Jody Evans. Jody Evans is the gal who started Code Pink. Remember them? So all of this is very organized, is my point. Okay. So I'm going to get to the reporting. The reporting just is absolutely astounding. Here, by the way, is ABC calling this mostly peaceful protest as people in the background are starting to go crazy.
Demonstrations had been going on right outside the Federal Detention Center. Most of those demonstrations were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by, honking their horns. And again, they were expressing their anger about the detention of so many immigrants at the Federal Center. Most of the evening, the federal agents stayed inside the building, but at a certain point, some of the demonstrators got very close to the property. In fact, some of them went onto the property, started tagging the building, started banging on fences, and shortly after all that happened, the agents started firing off tear gas.
This is reporting mostly peaceful Sunday night. It's dark in this video. The sun set, in LA somewhere around 9 o'clock. It was dark. So this is wild. They'd already shut down an entire freeway. They'd already bombarded police cars. On Saturday, 1.5 days before this woman says these protests were mostly peaceful, ABC News for the win, you can see a man throwing rocks at a series of police vehicles and ICE and Department of Homeland Security cars. Look at this. So he's standing in the center median, and he's picking up rocks that he has already pre-prepared or has there on the ground, and he's lobbing them, he's throwing them at police cars, at federal DHS Border Patrol vehicles. Other people are doing the same. You can hear right there the rocks hitting the vehicles, some causing significant damage. And of course, they could go through a windshield and they could do tremendous damage and harm to vehicle occupants. You know what this is? This is assault on a police officer, on a federal law enforcement officer, times however many, times this person has done this. I mean, we're talking a lifetime in jail if you stack these charges. I think they found the guy. Again, mostly peaceful protest, my foot. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Of course, following on the crazy news out of LA over the weekend, the city is reeling from massive riots, violent demonstrations, attacks on police, and an obstinate political establishment that is keen to pick a fight, I think, with Trump and certainly with ICE to prevent any further enforcement of immigration law in California, the largest sanctuary state in the country. Now, one thing I have to point out here, I just mentioned this earlier, that there's one particular gang member that the agents apprehended on Saturday. It was not immediately in the downtown LA area. In a separate operation that occurred in the Fashion District, Tom Homan moments ago on MSNBC explained that the raids that took place there, which is in downtown Los Angeles, wasn't actually an immigration raid, that it was a service of 3 criminal warrants based on a large criminal conspiracy. The conspiracy involved money laundering, tax evasions, and customs fraud. So somebody there, some business, the allegation is, underdeclared over $80 million in goods, which resulted in a failure to pay for approximately $17 million in duties. So I assume, Garment District, they're importing fabric somewhere in the world, and they're saying it's worth less than it really was, and in turn are paying less in duties, and that's a crime. So they were, in fact, doing arrests related to legitimate criminal activities. I'm not someone to downplay the seriousness of illegal immigration. I want to see, at this point, I want to see roundups of every single person out there that if you were out there in any capacity and are illegal, you're done. We got to clean this up. But the crazy thing is that these protesters came out and began attacking officers who are basically, it seems, trying to make the rich pay their fair share. You'd think the Democrats would be okay with that, right, Robbie? Fascinating stuff. Now, the deployment of the National National Guard against the wishes of the sitting governor. There's a lot being made of this. We call this federalizing the National Guard. The president basically saying, "Come on, you're federal troops and you're going in." Now, I don't know. I grew up my entire childhood listening to stories in history class and social studies about how wonderful it was that John Kennedy, JFK, and later Johnson, LBJ, both against the wishes of the then governor of Alabama and the then governor of Mississippi, starting in 1962 through 1965, federalizing those two states' National Guards and enforcing, and protecting the civil rights of Americans, again, against the wishes of governors, over the protests of those governors. And, I remember being taught about this in school and being told how admirable this was. So here we have, again, a city in chaos, cops in harm's way, government property, private property getting destructed, millions upon millions of dollars in damage. I think when the dust settles on this, will be even higher. And do you just let it happen? Is that the answer? If the governor and the mayor are all saying there's nothing to see here, there's no problems, we got this, do you just let it happen? And regardless of your feelings for Trump, How would you feel about this if your home, your business, your livelihood, your savings were on the line? What if it was your family that was stuck in that horrendous traffic blocked freeway getting attacked from all sides by an unruly, violent mob? Would you want Trump to send in the cavalry to save you? I think the answer is yes. It's the only reasonable thing. So to me, again, everybody's saying that Trump created this crisis. Trump didn't create anything. Trump is enforcing the law, doing criminal investigations, going after bad guys. And, and that's that. Here, Karen Bass, yesterday on CNN, she said this everywhere she possibly could, that you didn't need to deploy the National Guard. Everything was under control.
Curious if now that the National Guard troops are there on the ground, if there is any urgency on the police department's part to really put out an even stronger force and a stronger posture to get this under control, so you can, and I know your governor has said that they don't want, that he's formally requested that the National Guard troops go back, that they're not needed. Were those things correlated?
Well, I absolutely agree with the governor in asking that the troops be withdrawn. I don't think that is the way to bring peace in Los Angeles. I think that our law enforcement officers can handle this situation, but I just have to repeat again, it's a feeling here of intentional chaos in a situation that had not broken out to violence, short of a few people, and there's nothing unusual about that, and our police departments can manage that, but it is as though troops were rolled out in a provocative manner, and I do not see how that is helpful to Los Angeles right now. It's not the type of resources that we need in the city.
So the 2 days preceding this, when it was just a few people doing a few bad things, nothing to see here, folks, everything's fine. Here is a montage of various rioting occurring across the city. This is a city that Mayor Bass is the chief executive officer over. You'd think, she has to be aware this is happening because anyone with a Twitter account knew it was happening. These are fireworks being launched at people and at police. Here's a fire being set to multiple vehicles, barricades in the middle of the street. People can't even breathe because of the thick smoke. It's a street takeover. They're throwing things at the police. Here's another car fire with people in masks holding Mexican flags. This is the scene of the police cars. I see maybe 8 to 10 California Highway Patrol police cars that are getting pelted with rocks, boulders, and cinder blocks and scooters. This is serious stuff, right? And Mayor Bass says, no, there's really nothing to see here, right? Nothing to see here at all. It's infuriating. Saturday, a full day and a half before she gives this report, Fox LA reporter Matthew Seedorf is covering one of the protests, the early protests in Paramount. These are one of the early protests that you'll hear Newsom and Mayor Bass say were not that crazy and didn't warrant calling the National Guard because they were just sort of here and there, some skirmishes. So look at this.
So this is what's left of our work car. We had it parked near the scene. Obviously, we got here right at the beginning before we knew
it's
it was
an
going to
unmarked
escalate
news
the
van
situation that it got to.
Fox
This is
LA.
a brand new news truck that we just got.
Looks like a nice
the
Ford
tires were
Explorer.
slashed. They busted into the windows.
They put F ice
We'll see.
spray painted on it.
They, our personal bags were in the car. They stole all the stuff that was inside.
Oh, what was that? Oh, they went through the car. They didn't just protest and bang up the car. They stole stuff. Yeah, that's going to teach ICE to stop. We're going to steal things from random cars.
There are some things here. Looks like they took cinder blocks through the window.
there we go. Once again, you can see pieces of cinder block. These figure prominently in these so-called peaceful protests. A lot of people used cinder blocks that arrived on pallets. There are multiple photographs and videos showing this. You can buy a lot of cinder blocks with $36 million, which is what Churla got last year from largely Gavin Newsom and his merry band of California Democrats. This is wild stuff. Look at this car. It's trashed. Oh my God. And if you're a reporter and you're listening to this, you know how important and valuable your equipment is to you. I mean, you lose or something breaks, you lose a piece of equipment. It could be thousands of dollars and not something that will immediately get replaced. Your job, career could be out the window for getting equipment damaged. Big deal. Okay. But no, it's just mostly peaceful protests. And you see this thread mixed throughout. CNN reporter on Sunday says, there's some other people mixed in.
Well, there are multiple protests now, or at least we should call them incursions between the people who've been demonstrating here, people who've joined in, and law enforcement. That violence that you were referring to, Jess, you can see that there's a car burning in the background. And while they've made a semicircle here on the street, you can see that the Waymo over there has been vandalized. And we understand that some cars over there may also be Waymos that have been set on fire. So this is a part of the night that law enforcement really worries about, because when I look at some of these protesters, they are not resembling the people who were here when all of this began earlier this morning in Los Angeles. This crowd is different. And so now you have a problem for law enforcement trying to contain these people, whoever they may be, some of them who may have some legitimate concerns, but then also other people who are mixed in.
Yeah, people have legitimate concerns. You lose all legitimacy the minute you start throwing cinder blocks at cars. The minute you start firing fireworks at cops. The minute you start putting children in harm's way. You set fires, you damage property, you go loot the sneaker store, which is something we saw. No, this isn't some people with legitimate. This is organized mayhem. And don't forget, we can never let Gavin Newsom forget this, that he allowed this to happen. He wanted it to happen. And he's screaming at any effort by Trump and by the Department of Homeland Security and by Pete Hegseth to do anything about it, to stop it. Everything you need to know about these people, unbelievable. All right, what does the LA chief of police have to say about this? Well, I'll hear from him next. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. So the LA police chief, yesterday, in the midst of both Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom saying that things were under control, holds a press conference where the impression I got, at least, was very much things were not under control. In fact, far from it.
We saw the first night was bad. What we've seen subsequent to that is getting increasingly worse and more violent. Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you. And we have adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to be able to hold them accountable. We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity and the type of things that they're doing. They'll they'll take backpacks, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They have a hammer, and they'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars, and throw at other people. We've seen people with hammers, and you broadcasted, breaking the bollards behind the federal building and taking the rocks, if you will, or pieces of concrete, and throwing them at officers. We've had liquid of who knows what description thrown at officers. There's no limit to what they're doing to our officers. And again, as I mentioned in my statement, I can't thank our folks enough and our partner agency police officials for going out there and taking care of the community.
Well, he literally says this thing's out of control. And is describing a riot. This is not a protest. This is a riot. Deadly force is being used, potentially lethal force, against police officers. The chances of civilians getting caught up in this, getting hit by flying rocks, fireworks, etc., very high. An industrial firework, industrial fire is like a missile. So this is very serious stuff. And in the midst of this, Gavin Newsom is out there, making it, first of all, denying that this thing is getting out of hand. I've already explained why he's doing it. And then he's trying to make it about himself and latching on to this threat made by Trump. Hey, nobody's above the law. If Gavin Newsom wants to continue to obstruct federal law by virtue of pursuing these sanctuary state policies, perhaps Gavin Newsom could get arrested. Here's Newsom responding to that.
Get your hands off these poor people. They're just trying to live their lives, man. Trying to live their lives, paying their taxes. Been here 10 years. The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
Now, I don't know. I always have thought of Newsom as a deeply unserious person. You can see the way he's talking. I mean, it's all theater. Are illegals really his, again, illegals they're here in the country illegally. He views illegals as his people that he needs to protect. Again, I wish that the governor of my former state of residence, I wish that he cared a little bit more about everybody else. Like the people that are really actually paying taxes, number one, and who are, living in accordance with the law. He's deciding what laws to follow and which laws to ignore. So here's Tom Homan responding to this. He's getting interviewed by MSNBC, and you can see. I mean, this is just the difference between Mr. Fake chiclet smile Gavin Newsom and Tom Homan, who's honey badger, who just is a lot smarter actually than Gavin Newsom, but also just has zero care in the world or political correctness.
And he talked about what I talked about, these people that are these protests and rioting. When they cross the line, they got, here's what I said, they have a right to protest. They have the First Amendment rights, but they can't cross that line. They can't cross that line of impediment. They can't cross that line of putting their hands on officers. They can't cross the line of knowingly concealing an illegal alien, because they're all federal crimes. They're in statute, and they will be prosecuted. When he asked the questions that include Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom, I was clear, they haven't crossed the line, but they're not above the law either. If they commit a crime, they certainly will ask for prosecution. That's what was happening. I never threatened to arrest Governor Newsom, so I'm not biting off on that. It's just that report is dishonest, and let him play the whole 20-minute interview, and you'll see a whole different discussion that we had.
All right, NBC News, of course, stands by the reporting.
All right, NBC News stands by its reporting. So Homan didn't say in his original interview with NBC that he was going to go after Newsom. He said, look, nobody's above the law. If they decide to break the law, then we're going to go after them. And Newsom's like, come at me, bro, come at me. It's not going to end. This is, and we'll get a little bit more into this next hour, what this means politically for the Democrats. Is this really what the Democrats want moving forward, politically for themselves? Does it help them come November a year from now? Okay, I'm also going to get into the Musk-Trump dust-up. I have a very simple and straightforward take on this. So I'll give that to you when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. So I had to, because I was traveling, pre-record by a few hours my show on Thursday, and I, in the midst of it, this whole thing with Elon Musk and Trump starts blowing up. I'm landing in Florida. This thing's getting crazy. And of course, many of you have reached out to me for my comments on it. You know, I'm going to summarize it this way. First off, Elon Musk is without question one of the most brilliant people in our country. I think he is a principled guy, okay? And this conflict, as I understand it, sprung from his belief that all of his efforts in Doge, all of the countless hours, days, weeks, months that he spent in service of the United States of America to try to drive down our deficit, was thrown out the window by profligate spending by House Republicans. And he felt betrayed by Trump and lashed out at Trump over this. Now, for being a phenomenally bright guy, Elon Musk did two things that I think are extraordinarily stupid. The first was accusing Trump of being the reason the Epstein list wasn't released because, guess what? Your name is on it too, DJT. Now, why is this stupid? It's stupid because the core accusation there just isn't true. Now, I'll back up on this. If you're going to accuse a former friend, also happens to be the president of the United States and a very powerful person, if you're going to accuse him of being a pedophile, you really best be damn sure that the accusation is accurate and is going to land and create the kind of damage that you hope it will create, or else you've just shot yourself into both feet with one bullet and have put yourself in an absolutely wretched position. I don't have to explain to you all the reasons why, because getting accused of being a pedophile is kind of a big deal, for no upside. There is simply no way that Trump is, in any way, shape, or form, let me back up. There's no way that any evidence exists that in any way, shape, or form confirms that Trump slept with underage girls. If that evidence had existed or exists today at any point in time, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, it would have been used by the deep state to get at Trump. Are you actually telling me, for those of you who think that this is a real accusation, Elon Musk dropped the news that Trump is implicated in the Epstein files, you actually think that, that they had to use the Steele dossier, make up Russian hookers, talk about golden showers in a Moscow hotel. You think that they actually had to do that if Instead, they had tape and confirmation that Trump, had been having intercourse and somehow, participated in the human trafficking of underage women on Epstein Island or anywhere in Epstein's orbit? Yeah, I don't think so. It's not possible. So what we have here is something that anybody with a little bit of logic could quickly go, yeah, this is nonsense. Now, Musk isn't, by the way, I don't think Musk actually, everything he wrote in his tweet is accurate. So I don't think you can, what do I mean by this? Because I'm sure Trump appears in the Epstein files. There are going to be people in the Epstein files who did nothing wrong. They were in Epstein's orbit. They went to parties at his house. They socialized with him. Trump has a history with Epstein. The two were neighbors in New York, and they were neighbors in Palm Beach. And by the way, the relationship went south when Epstein was accused of trying to solicit an underage employee at Mar-a-Lago. And Trump found out about it and barred him from the club and never spoke to the guy again. This is very well established. So I just have to be clear. Trump appears in the Epstein files, quote unquote. It just doesn't appear in the way that you'd think would be damaging to him. So to me, what Musk did there was so incredibly stupid. And I say this with, all the respect due to Musk for everything that he has done, everything he continues to do. But that was idiotic. Now, okay, all right. The second thing that absolutely clued me in that Musk was on a different planet somewhere, Mars perhaps, was when in the fit of rage of anger tweeting, Musk called for the creation of a new political party. Let's think about this logically for just a minute. Imagine that Musk gets his way. Now, Musk, a brilliant guy, has a big following. A lot of people love him. Is he a charismatic force? Not particularly. He's not charismatic like Trump. I mean, during the campaign, he'd get up there, jump up and down on the stage, say a few words. He's actually difficult to listen to because he has Asperger's. He's got this halting speech pattern. Brilliant guy. Every word that comes out of his mouth is brilliant, except the tweets that came out over the end of last week. But brilliant guy, but just not charismatic. But is he capable of attracting people to his cause? The answer is some, yes, beyond a doubt. Is it 5% of the electorate? Does he double the libertarian support out there nationally? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? It sure as hell is not 51% of the country. Trump won 51% of the country. So I'm just pointing something out. So Musk says, we're going to create a third party. And we're going to do it, for a third party that represents 80% of the country. Okay. Good luck with that. Anyone that can think about this a little bit practically understands that whether it's 2.5%, 5%, 20%, or 30%, that support is going to be cannibalized from whom? Not Democrats, not today. Not people that are voting for the Democratic Party today. You're not cannibalizing Kamala Harris voters. So Kamala Harris lost by what, a couple percent? Where is he taking that support from? Republicans. And you do not have to be a literal rocket scientist to know this. So what Elon Musk proposed there would result in the presidency and a supermajority of Congress won by the Democrats. What would happen to the budget, to the national deficit and debt, if we get a supermajority of Democrats in Congress, House and the Senate, and a Democrat president. I don't know. I'm going to go on a limb here and say we're going to end up with a budget or a series of budgets and bills that will make the big, beautiful bill look like I called it over the weekend, the Mona Lisa of fiscal restraint. That's what we're going to end up with. That's the reality of what he's proposing. So here we have two very specific tweets. Some were, a variation of, I think the one about the third party, there was a number of different tweets that all kind of proposed the same thing. And then, of course, the Epstein tweet that are, again, I'm operating under the idea of thought that Musk is a very smart guy, that are just insane. So my take on this is it's drugs. And it's not because the Washington Post said so. It's not because the mainstream media has called it that. But it is one of the most straightforward explanations for how someone who is otherwise brilliant can go absolutely off the rails and start spouting complete and utter nonsense. Like idiotic things. Yes, he got angry. Yes, in my view, that anger was in part justified. Yes, this guy sacrificed a tremendous lot, of personal time away from his businesses, away from things that, he cared about, basically living and breathing Doge. I get all of that. But these attacks on Trump were insane. And it pains me. It actually hurts me to have to criticize Musk, but I have to. Now, here's a thought, sort of a thought challenge for you all to think about. And please, email me if you disagree. But here's the thought challenge. Do you, after this, we'll call it fallout between Musk and Trump, do you think less of Trump? Or do you think less of Musk? Or do you think less of both of them? And I don't know how I would have answered that on Thursday and Friday, but Monday, today, after seeing it all play out and having the benefit of a little bit of time, I look at this and I think I don't think any differently of Trump at all. Trump ran on an agenda that wasn't a balanced budget. He ran on an agenda of closing the border and right-sizing trade and making our military great again and building manufacturing in the U.S., and he's looking to deliver on his promises. Also, Trump didn't start to say a bunch of bat nuts crazy stuff, but Musk did. He went off the rails. He hurt a former friend. He went public with the dispute in a really ugly way. Shame on him. And I have to, if I'm going to use something from my perception, life experience, and say, where did that come from? I'm going to say it was chemically induced. That and a combination of being, a high-strung person with Asperger's. So sam@what'srightshow.com is my email. Feel free to let me know what you think. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Can I make one observation here, too, about the Trump-Elon blowout? Because I get to Florida, and everybody wants to know, Sam, what do you think is going to be the fallout from this? What do you think is going to happen? I had a meeting first thing in the morning on Friday, and everybody in the meeting wanted to know my opinion. And I said, it's going to be kind of a nothing. And nobody believed me when I said it's going to be a nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. It's not optimal. It's a bad look. airing, laundry out there in public is never advisable. Not something I would do unless, a nuclear, tactical nuclear response was required. But, at the end of the day, this is not going to be a big thing. And then guess what? Sometimes I feel almost prophetic. Guess what? Over the weekend, LA is on fire. Threats that the Democratic demolition derby is going to be coming to cities across America, from Tampa to Tennessee to San Francisco. So, is anybody talking today really about Elon Musk except for me? I mean, I'm bringing it up because I wasn't here, and I, some of you maybe care what I think, but it's like, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. And by the way, it's also detuning itself because, Trump and Musk is starting to retweet some Trump stuff and, and giving, both of them are mellowing out about it. So, by the way, have you had any Democrat friends, at work or wherever, family members? See, I told you Trump is a Musk and da, da, da. You know what you can tell them? I think the best thing to tell your friends who are gleeful about the so-called schism between Trump and Musk, that we Republicans are sometimes a little too open and honest about our criticisms, even internal criticisms. We are quick to react to things that we don't think are right. By contrast, the Democrats are quite the opposite. No, they all, in unison, very few exceptions, carried water for Joe Biden when he was obviously non-compos mentis, when he was wandering around, stumbling place to place. By the way, Trump fell on a rainy day on his Air Force One stairs going up to the presidential plane, and he stumbled and got himself back up, and everybody's talking about this now. Oh my gosh, Trump is losing it. I'm like, okay, you've never. I understand. Everybody making that assessment has never slipped on a slippery surface. Biden wasn't slipping here and there; he was slipping all the time. So wandering, he fell asleep in meetings. He just sat there with his mouth agape, looking like I don't know what a dead grouper looks like, but it was certainly something like what Biden was doing. Anyway, all the Democrats just kept on script because the Democrats are lemmings. And if they get a talking order, if the party tells them, Biden is sharp as a tack, they all sit there like programmed, mind-numbed robots. Remember when Rush would always say that? Mind-numbed robots. And sit there and go, sharp as a tack, sharp as a tack, sharp as a tack. Repeating it on. Of course, we Republicans aren't like that. We're free thinkers. We have disagreements. We have our, our ups, our downs, and we're a big party with a lot of disagreement in it from time to time. And I'm of the opinion that disagreement is good. I'm of the opinion that, that always, having a single voice and being fearful of speaking out, which clearly Musk was not, is a problem. And by the way, destroys the narrative that Musk is some sort of puppeteer, or that he was an auxiliary president or whatever. Obviously, these are two bulls. Somebody said over the weekend, you can't have two bulls in the same pasture. But there's certainly nobody was subservient to the other. And Musk felt very strong. So look, in this sense, I would rather be the party that has the public, disagreement and mess on its hands than be sitting 5 years later, with, like the Democrats are, with Jake Tapper writing a book, an apologia right? To 5 years or more of continuing deceit, willful deceit from journalists, right? Not just members of the administration. So this is kind of, anyway, where we're at. Now, when we come back, I want to talk about the political fallout now, moving from this to the Democrats from this newest round of political violence. And isn't it funny? We did a show on Thursday about political violence, Robbie. Notice that. And almost on cue, massive political violence unfolding across Los Angeles and potentially spreading to other cities as well. This is why, by the way, Trump has to decisively act, put on notice every other mayor, every other county magistrate that this kind of stuff is not to be tolerated. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840, KXNT. So, of course, in the wake of the unfolding riots, things not necessarily calming down, but not escalating either. There's a National Guard presence remaining in L.A., also 500 Marines up from Camp Pendleton. In the wake of this, what is the political, the results of this politically for Democrats and for Trump? Now, Trump's approval rating, they do this every night. They Rasmussen, I see, they do polling, right? Trump's approval rating over the weekend went up by 3%. I'll continue to monitor this so I am getting all of this accurately. But I also have noted, and this is huge, that Trump's approval rating is soaring among Hispanics and continues to go up. So, this is another, new poll that has just come out specifically with Hispanic support for Trump. Now, why is this? You can't forget that Trump ran on a platform of fixing illegal immigration. And as part of the fix, huge component of this were deportations. Now, let's strip away from this all the nuance of, for example, ICE was out there going after criminals, going after people who there's apparently some investigation going on with a $17 million either use tax or various taxes and fees related to import duties, investigation in the garment district, in the fashion district in downtown LA, actual criminal investigation, nothing to do with immigration. Anyway, setting aside all the nuance to what actually ICE was doing in LA starting on Thursday and Friday of last week, at a 30,000-foot view, most Americans look at that and go, it was immigration enforcement. I see Border Patrol, I see ICE, I see Homeland Security. It's immigration. Now, the next thing that happens is what do we think? Do we think that that is good or bad? Now, of course, you and I think it's good, right? I mean, of course it's good. The pendulum has swung too far the other way for too long. We have too many bad people in this country that we need to get rid of. And we recognize, sad but true, that occasionally there'll be a good illegal, nice guy, following all the rules that gets caught up in this, gets deported. See you later, alligator. And we're not necessarily distraught about this because those people broke laws to get here. They're here in the country illegally, and they're subject to expedited removal. That's just how it works. Now, the Democrats are in a pickle. You look at Gavin Newsom, everything that he does right now is through the prism of building himself up to be a presidential candidate in 2028. Now, there's only been one Democrat of late that has had the benefit of running for president as a Democrat without having to get through a Democrat primary. Her name is Kamala Harris. Gavin Newsom will not be as lucky. Gavin Newsom will have to run as a Democrat against Democrats in a Democratic primary. Excuse me here as I knock the microphone out of the way. He'll have to run against other Democrats for the Democratic nomination. Who votes in the Democratic primary? Well, without getting too cute here, a bunch of certifiably insane people. The craziest of crazy of liberal wackadoodles vote in the Democratic primary. So what does he have to do? Every political instinct that Gavin Newsom has is to pivot to the center. I've been covering this here. I've been going into great detail about it. Gavin Newsom is desperately trying to remake himself as some kind of a moderate. Now, can he be a moderate on this? Can he find middle ground with Trump on immigration? Well, he can't if he has any hope of ever winning over Democrats and getting the requisite number of wins in the Democratic primary, and getting enough votes to secure the nomination. That's the only way. He's got to carry the convention. And you can't get through the gauntlet of the Democratic Party for 2028 without being anti-Trump on immigration. You just can't do it. So he's forced to double down. The problem with this is, if you look at Gavin Newsom today and you pulled, Gavin Newsom's approach, we're fighting against ICE and let California burn, and no, we don't need law and order. And yeah, we got this handled, but no, we don't. And you look at that versus Trump, who says, hey, if you're here in the country illegally, you're subject to removal. We're prioritizing criminals, but, if we catch you along the way, see you later, alligator, right? And also, as an overlay, #law and order. Every poll I have ever seen favors Trump on that one, by 15, 20, 25 points. Not by 5, not by 2, not by 2.5, by a lot. So this is a disaster for Gavin Newsom. I don't know that Mayor Bass will ever intend to aspire to higher office. She was a very powerful congresswoman. As we have learned, some of the stuff coming out about her, by the way, horrific. She was one of the point people in Washington for NED, which is the shadowy group whose purpose ostensibly is to establish democracy, but it's behind every color revolution across the globe, including the mess in Ukraine. So if you remember Victoria Nuland, among others, inside the Obama administration, absolute goobers, right? So Bass is behind this. This is her color revolution. She's doing it in LA as we speak. There was probably some purpose behind letting all those rich homes burn up in the hills of the Pacific Palisades. It wasn't just a whoopsie daisy that they didn't have water in those tanks, in those reservoirs. Just like it isn't a whoopsie daisy that suddenly this thing happens and there's pallets of bricks and there are stand down orders given. Again, the police were told to, and a lot of people basically to be gentle. And at the same time, the Democrats' feral pets were out there running amok. This thing slid out of control because LAPD did not respond in a forceful enough way. Now, Trump has to come in and has to quash this. He has to set a precedent that he intends to act forcefully in other cities should this spread. The organizers of the riots in LA have already made noises that they intend to occupy other parts of the city. There was talk overnight of a thrust against LAX, the international airport in Los Angeles, hoping to shut that down, creating, I'm sure, what would be an absolute mess and a disaster. for travelers and business people. Okay, so that, and there's been talk of it spreading to places like San Francisco, which is of course also a blue city. Tampa as well, which is a fairly blue city, considering the overall red nature of Florida. By the way, I don't think this would get very far in Florida. I'm certain that Governor DeSantis would quickly mobilize the National Guard and quash it without needing any help from Trump in that regard. So this is a disaster. I read this as a complete and total disaster for the Democratic Party, and yet another example of them doubling down on the crazy. When America has signaled electorally that they have had their fill of crazy, no thank you, we are ready for some common sense. None of this is common sense. None of this is reasonable stuff. Now, Democrats are all over social media, or all over the news, all the talking heads are calling Trump a tyrant for deploying the National Guard. Now, I think what they would prefer, if I'm going to read it for what it is, they would prefer to have the rioters' veto. They would prefer to have a small minority, but very dangerous minority of people dictate to the rest of us public policy based on violence. The Democrats would like for a few thousand violent, jobless, mentally ill agitators to make the rule for our society. Case in point, immigration law. What does it say? Can't come into the country illegally. But because the violent mob is deployed, we Americans should listen to the mob, right? We shouldn't listen. Trump is a tyrant for quashing the mob, for coming in with force and quelling the violence in an effort to have the rule of law that was voted on by Congress, has been on the books for years, and is now being enforced by the President of the United States, by this administration. Okay? That is the way it's supposed to work. So the narrative that the Democrats are pushing here, okay, is that Donald Trump incited this. He inflamed tensions, okay, by what? Enforcing the law that he was elected to enforce. Americans frustrated that for years existing immigration laws simply were ignored by successive administrations, and that the problem continued to get worse and worse, to the point that we had multiple high-profile folks killed, kids killed, raped, horrendous crimes at the hands of dangerous illegal immigrants that were all shepherded into the country in particularly strong fashion by the Biden administration, and that was somehow acceptable and normal and just. Flipping on the head the idea that, that all of a sudden law and order doesn't matter. But I think people understand this, is my point. I think that people see that Trump is law and order. They think that Trump is enforcing illegal immigration. And in basic terms, they look at that and go, that's good. The Democrats, on the other hand, are against Trump enforcing illegal immigration, are against Trump enforcing law and order, and as a consequence become the party of chaos and of violence and of scenes of properties and cars and things burning in the street. This just, it's what they want. It's not a majority of Americans that want that. Far from it. Trump needs to keep this up, keep a cool, calm head, and not let himself get derailed by these people. And I'll tell you, it's just, it's gonna be fascinating. So and by the way, I don't think it is a good image for the Democratic Party to have scenes of mayhem, of fires burning, of police cars getting smashed against a backdrop of miscreants waving Mexican flags. Like, if you wanted to persuade people that a little bit of illegal immigration, these are good people overall, and that we should sort of, maybe just be a little gentler when it comes to Tom Homan's, shock troops. This was not the way to do it. These images are very powerful, and they are absolutely politically devastating to Democrats. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, The What's Right Show, will be back in a moment. Hi, Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, Sam at what'srightshow.com. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. By the way, question for you. When you look at the protesters, we'll be nice, we'll call them protesters, waving Mexican flags as they are standing around in front of and, by scenes of violence in Los Angeles. Do you think you would be allowed to do that in Mexico? It's a question. Because the president of Mexico, she actually called on Mexicans to protest in the U.S. She had a press conference that said, we want protest. We got to protest. You guys got to get out there and protest. Who the hell does this witch think she is? Article 33 of the Mexican Constitution says foreigners are prohibited from engaging in political activities, including demonstrations, as this is considered an interference in national affairs. Only in the U.S., only in America, do we have Democrat governors saying, these are my people. These are my people. I'm mad as hell. I'm mad as hell, says Gavin Newsom. How dare Trump, come out there and arrest my people? These are Los Angelinos. These are Californians. No, sir, these are illegal immigrants. And if the tables were turned, if I, as an American citizen, was living in Mexico City, I couldn't protest against the Mexican government. I'd face arrest. Absolute madness. Well, I'm pointing this out. So, to put a finer point on it, I think, again, politically, this is an absolute disaster for the Democrats. I think that this is not going to go well for them. And I'm actually surprised. I think the appetite, based on what I've seen out there, I don't think Americans want to see cops getting pelted with rocks. I think the George Floyd moment has passed. So, that's that. By the way, speaking of mayhem on the streets, did you see this shooting at the Bellagio? This is, the whole thing was live streamed. There was two YouTubers that had some sort of gripe with each other. And one YouTuber got on and did a rant about the other YouTuber and his wife. So these are both, some sort of influencers. I'm not going to get into their names, but regardless, apparently, allegedly, one of the slighted YouTubers shot dead the other YouTuber and the other YouTuber's spouse right in front of the Bellagio on Las Vegas Boulevard on the Strip, crowded sidewalk. This is terrible. I mean, I've walked this spot with my kids countless times. So I'll follow this as we get more information. No, we don't know if they were legal or illegal. I'm just pointing the story out. By the way, a small, interesting thing about Las Vegas, a lot of the times that we have violence on the Strip or in casinos, it kind of gets covered up. I don't know if you know this. It's a thing, we rely on, casinos rely on people feeling safe coming to Nevada, and there is an unspoken agreement between the tourism industry broadly and the media to keep, things under wraps. But the problem was this thing was literally captured on camera, live streamed, and so, quickly went viral, and there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. So even the RJ was forced to write a long report about this detailing the incident. James Wood tweeted this out yesterday. It's an international attention. I'm not going to play the video because you can't see much in it, but still, just you can hear the shots, and it's horrific. By the way, one last thing here. Greta, you see her boat was seized by the IDF. Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist turned Palestinian supporter. Well, anyway, they're going to make them all watch October 7th massacre videos, basically to show them exactly who they support. So this is going to be, of course, interesting. All right, this week we'll have lots to cover. I will be here, folks. I'm not traveling. I'm not doing anything. Be back in Vegas tomorrow. So I look forward to being up to speed on everything. But look, we got to keep our heads cool in all of this. And I just noticed that there was a riot-related post that Elon Musk liked and supported that Trump put out there. So again, evidence of a healing schism. And I do not think that will be nearly as bad as people thought it would be last week. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right.